What's going on, everybody? For MMA Sucka, my name is Nate Freeman. I'm joined today by one half of the only women's fight on one of the most historic nights in MMA history, the PFL versus Bellator card coming up later this month in Saudi Arabia. Kelsey De Santis. Kelsey, how are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you on. Thank you for your time. So let's dive right into it. Like I mentioned, you're fighting on this PFL versus Bellator card, champion versus champion. The theme is Seize the Throne because it's PFL's champions versus Bellator's champions. But you're competing on the preliminary card against Claressa Shields, who is obviously one of the biggest names in boxing. She's had two PFL fights, and this will be her third fight against you. First of all, I'd love to hear how this opportunity came about for you.
Yeah, so my manager, Brian, Sucker Punch Entertainment, he reached out to me, and we were trying to plan a fight for the beginning of this year. And one of the girls that we were talking about ended up not coming through, and then another one wanted to do a catch weight at 140, and I'm not really about that because I'm a really big 145er. And then he mentioned that you put my name down, that there was a possibility if I wanted to fight Claressa, and I was like, yeah, for sure, I'd love that. And he's like, all right, no guarantees, but I'll let you know. And then he called me and said that it ended up working out, and I was like, great, let's do this. So that's kind of how it came out.
Yeah. Now, is this just like sort of a one fight deal with PFL / Bellator, or is this were you able to sign a multi-fight contract with them, or?
From my understanding, it's a multi-fight contract. So I think it's 104, depending on how things go. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to moving on from this fight, winning this fight, moving on, possibly in the tournament, in PFL's tournament. So
yeah, I'm sure that fans would love to see you in that. But let's talk about Claressa Shields as an opponent. Obviously, knowing her background, her game plan seems like it'd be pretty simple, is just to walk forward and throw her punches because of her boxing background. Have you seen her two PFL fights before, and what were you able to glean from those two fights if you were able to watch them?
Yeah, so I saw them, and I was kind of impressed that she won the first one, to be honest with you, against Brittany Elkin. But Brittany made some mistakes that I think that probably should have been avoided for her to be able to secure that win. And then watching her fight, the last fight that she fought in 2021 against, I can't remember her last
Abby
name.
Montez, I think.
Yes, Montez. And she was like 21 at the time, I think. Young girl, which is awesome. She's been doing MMA, I guess, for quite some time. And she followed her game plan really well. You could tell, she wanted to close the distance when she got in tight, and take away her weapons, which are her strikes, and then get it to the floor. So yeah, it was fun. It was fun to watch both fights, actually. And obviously I can see that, where she kind of puts her weight and where she's standing and her position. And so it'll be interesting to see what she brings this fight. I mean, it's been, since that fight, it's been a little bit over a year. I feel like that she's been able to go back to the drawing board and train and prepare. But personally, I don't think that's long enough. Like, I have over 10 years in jiu-jitsu myself. So, I know it takes quite some time, and I've competed at some of the highest levels in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, IBJJF. So I definitely know that it takes a while to progress.
And, you mentioned your Brazilian jiu-jitsu experience, but you came up and your first sport that you trained in, first martial art that you trained in, was Muay Thai. So I'm sure that you also feel comfortable with the fight standing as well, especially since this is MMA and there's knees and elbows and kicks and all of that as well, which is something that she's not necessarily accustomed to.
Correct. Except I don't think there's elbows in this fight. I think in the other title fights, like on the main card, I believe they did accept elbows, but I don't think for us that's a no-go, unfortunately. But like you said, there's a lot of other tools in my arsenal. You know, I have knees, I have kicks and things of that sort. And I started as a Muay Thai fighter. And I think that's definitely helped me in my MMA game, like all around.
How do you feel about the no elbows rule in the PFL? I know I'm in a group of people that sort of talk about MMA and are big into people coming up. And I know it is much maligned in that group, but where do you stand on that? Do you wish that that was something that they would implement?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's kind of silly that they don't, to be honest with you. I mean, you can get, obviously elbows are devastating when they're applied properly, but so are punches and so are knees and so are kicks. You know what I mean? So I don't know why that's the case. I don't know what makes them think that it's a good idea to not have them. But I love the art of war when it comes to elbows and knees. I think they're phenomenal tools to be utilized, and it makes it that much more. I think it makes that fights more exciting, especially in the clinch. And I think it's unfortunate. I think they should just do away with that and let us elbow.
I mean, I agree as well. I don't think it makes that much of a difference, and obviously, you're taking away parts of mixed martial arts when you're doing that. So, exactly. PFL, get on it. But one of the reasons I wanted to speak with you was, as this card was being announced and the fights were being put together, I saw your name being matched up against Claressa Shields. And to be honest, I had not heard of you before. And so I did what any good MMA fan does when they've not heard of somebody and they go to Tapology. And I saw that you returned to fighting for the first time in 10 years last year. So that piqued my curiosity. And so I just did some more research on you. And throughout that experience, I just grew more and more intrigued with your story and your background. I think that you have one of the most interesting stories in the game right now, just based off of how much stuff you've done and some of the experiences that you've had in your life up to this point. So first of all, for people who are potentially like me, who do not know who you are, this is a very broad and very vague question, but can you tell them a little bit about who you are outside of the ring?
Yeah. So, thank you so much. By the way, I truly appreciate that's a huge compliment to me, because I've struggled with identity, like many of us humans have, and I never really wanted to be like locked into one persona and identify as one thing. And so I've tried to make myself as like well versed and well rounded in aspects that call to me. And one of the other biggest identities that I identify with is that I'm a mom of two. And that's obviously a huge part of my life. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people would think that, like, well, once you become a mom, maybe it would be harder, which it definitely is, to do a lot of things. But at the same time, it's been a huge motivating source for me to get back into the game. After I had my son Reese, who's now 2.5, I told myself, if you get an opportunity to do this again, you have to go all in. Like, this is a short window of opportunity. This is something that you love, and do it for yourself and for your kids. And so that's really why you were talking about that big 10-year gap, um, and why I decided, okay, like, I'm going for it. And finally, I kind of put my eggs all in one basket, but they've never really been all in one basket. So I started Muay Thai back in California when I was about like 15, 16 years old. And then when I was 18, I joined the Marine Corps, and I served as a military police canine officer. And then I was transferred into the martial arts program, and that opened my eyes to MMA, really, because I wasn't really fond of like rolling around on the ground when I was a great stand-up fighter. And I was like, why would I do that if I can, beat people on my feet? But it only took me like once or twice getting choked out, and I was like, okay, these guys would not beat me standing up. There's no way I'm gonna, compromise my talent and my ability as a fighter by not being well rounded. And so that's kind of how the whole MMA thing came about, for me, was in the Marine Corps, really. And then and then I got out, and I pursued my degrees, because I also didn't want to be, in a situation where it's like, okay, you're a fighter, but what if any fight could be your last fight, depending on how that fight goes, right? I mean, health is something that we have to be thankful for every day, really. You know what I mean? You never know what can happen. But so for me, getting my degrees was really important, and I got my undergraduate degree in business and entrepreneurship, and then I got my master's degree in public relations and communications from the University of Miami. I've worked in the corporate sector and the private sector, and I have two kids, so I've done quite a bit, and I was so excited that this opportunity came back around in full circle for me, where I'm at in my life. Like, I'm just so thankful. I'm so thankful to be able to not have to look back and say, why didn't I go for it? Or I wish I had, given it my all, or taken that window of opportunity and ran with it. So that's really what I'm doing now.
So I guess I'm kind of wanting to go through each of those sort of aspects of your life. So from what I saw in one of your videos, I think something that you mentioned for one of the reasons that you got involved in martial arts and Muay Thai to begin with was because something you said, it was along the lines of you had a fear of being unable to protect yourself. And for those that don't know, you grew up in the projects of Southern California. And I'm sure that had a little bit of a role in that. And I'd love to hear just some of your background growing up, and how that sort of bled into that fear that you spoke about in another interview.
Yeah. So you're a great researcher, Nate. I let you do your homework. I like that. So for me, I grew up pretty broke, and my mom was a single mom raising two kids, and the projects we grew up in got torn down. I remember drive-bys in that neighborhood. I remember a dude getting stabbed on my front door, my mom washing down blood in the morning. So like being exposed to that as a child, I think kind of, and my mom was always like, you got to watch your six. Like you just make sure you know where you're at. Situational awareness was such a huge part of my life at an early age that once I found Muay Thai when I was like a teenager, I was like hooked. And I got beat up a lot just starting out, but I was like, I loved it because it not only was it a way for me to feel like I had tools or an ability to protect myself, it was also a huge emotional filter for me. Like my dad was an alcoholic most of my life, and it, I never really felt comfortable when he was around. He wasn't around that much, but when he was around, it made me feel on edge. It made me feel like um, I needed to protect myself. So then I also had these like strong emotions and frustrations as a kid. Is that like, I think I remember asking myself early on is like, what is this about? Like, why am I alive? Like, what is the point? If it's all struggle, why am I fucking here? Excuse my language, but like, why am I here if it's always like, what am I here to do? And I think early on that kind of helped me, because it was like once I found Muay Thai, I could take this energy and these emotions that I couldn't really express verbally and transfer them into something positive and feel relieved. And that's carried on for years and years. And I think now as an adult, um, I feel safe now. Thank God. I've done quite a bit of therapy. I still do therapy. I'm actively doing therapy, and I have counselors, and that's helped me a lot in terms of feeling safe. But also, so has like my progression in training, and not just with martial arts. And I love martial arts near and dear. I love having the mindset is like your body is a weapon. But I'm also a big advocate for women and men that are gun owners, legal gun owners that like to train, learn, and develop their skill set, so that God forbid, if anything ever happens, or if they feel that they need to protect their life, that they have other tools, both their body um, and something to what we call equalize. Um, when it comes to weapons. So I kind of like long shot at that.
No, you're good. You're good. That is, that's a great answer. And that I want to segue now into, you had 4 amateur Muay Thai fights as you were, between when you started training and when you joined the Marine Corps. And went 3-1, avenged your only loss, right? But then you enrolled or enlisted in the Marine Corps. Talk a little bit about why you made that decision, and then talk a little bit more about what you did while you were a Marine, because you did a whole heck of a lot. So I'd love to hear, or I'd love for the people watching this to know just how extensive your military background is in just the 5 years that you served. You served 5 years, right?
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So, yep. I loved Muay Thai. Right. So I started fighting before the Marine Corps. My first ever fight was that loss, and I got my face beat in because the woman that I went up against, she was like 20-1, and I probably shouldn't have took the fight, but I did, and I didn't really have that much boxing training. I did just kickboxing, and my like Muay Thai skills weren't that great in terms of defense. But after losing that fight, I went back to the drawing board. I started training with a new trainer. Training became like a lot more serious. I nailed down what I needed to nail down. I won two more fights, and then I had the opportunity to rematch her, and I was so excited. I was like, here we go. And that happened actually 2 weeks before I joined the Marine Corps. And I remember thinking to myself, if I don't go now, because after I'd won that fight, that rematch, they offered me her pro fight that she was going to be fight. She pulled out of that card, and they were like, oh, well, Kelsey, you can take her slot in this pro card in a Thai fight. And I was like so ecstatic, because this was like my dream as a kid, coming through already at about 18 years old. And I thought to myself, if I do this now, the chances of me enlisting in the Marine Corps or in the service in general are so less likely. And so I said, you know what? I want to do something. I want to serve my country and do something that feels like my purpose is greater than just for myself. And so that's what got me there. And then the Marine Corps is a very obviously specific and special traditional service of all the branches that we have, and I love it. But it's a very like love-hate relationship. Like they always say, like they're not promising us like a rose garden. Like if you want to like, certain things that you want to do with your career and stuff like that, or like if you want to depending on what your purpose is for joining, that all depends on what branch you select, and but when it comes down to the Marine Corps, like a lot of Marines, like they joined to fight. Like we're fighters, like through and through, like, and like our training and our historic traditions and like what the Marine Corps stands for is very embedded in historical battles. So I graduated as company honor graduate from my boot camp class. And then I went on to my military police school, and I was able to be like, first of all, I was one of 4 women out of 80 men that were in the military police category in school. And from there, I was selected to be a canine handler. I think there was only maybe like 4 or 5 of us that got selected, maybe even, somewhere around that number that got selected from that group to be canine, which is different. They don't really do that with other branches. Other branches, you have to be like in your field for a while and then be like accepted to go. Whereas like the Marine Corps, and I don't know if they still do it this way, but they would streamline a lot of like their top percentage performers into certain schools. And so thankfully I was able to meet that. And I didn't see that one coming. Like I was so excited. I was like so stoked because I've always been a dog person, love dogs. I was like, wow, this is great. And then I was selected to work for HMX-1, which is the President's Helicopter Squadron. So you have like Air Force One, most people know about. A lot of people don't know about Marine One, which is like the President's helicopters that land on like the White House lawn. But we also do like a bunch of stateside missions and overseas missions. Which is pretty cool. I call it like my secret squirrel days because I got to work with like Secret Service and Department of State and all these different like interconnected groups. And I found out that like really, I was just read in on this like little portion of, my top secret clearance and everything. And there's all these different divisions, like to be read in on like everything is like insane and crazy because everybody has their own little missions and stuff. So that was a really cool experience. I got to work for the end of President Bush and the beginning of President Obama. And then I was hand selected to work at the Marine Corps' Martial Arts Center of Excellence, which is the only place in the Marine Corps that you can get your black belt with red tab, which is an instructor tab. And that's on like a whole different level. Like I remember going in, Nate, and like going in with my mindset, like even then, even after I've had like a lot of my military Marine training and everything, and going into the martial arts course, like, because first I had to graduate the course to even be an instructor. And my mindset was still very like, I'm a TIE fighter. So like when they would like pass out weapons and stuff that we would like go in the tree line and engage each other with, I'd be like, where are the TIE gloves? And they'd be like, what are you doing? Like, no, we're fighting with weapons. It's a weapons based system. Like we start with weapons and then like we end with hand-to-hand combat. So like, yes, you have to have hand-to-hand combat, but you also have to be like, why not utilize the weapon that you have of choice, first and foremost, especially because it's more of like a life and death type scenario. So you're fighting for your life. But it was truly an amazing experience. Like, I am so thankful for the leaders that I came across in the Marine Corps that mentored me and inspired me. And it wasn't always good. There was, but even from the bad, from some of the leaders, I was like, at least I could recognize, like, okay, this is the type of leader I won't become, and these are the type of people that I do like respect, admire, and want to learn from and be more like. So it was cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I guess my first question is, are there any favorite memories or favorite stories while serving in the president's helicopter squadron, serving on Marine One? And then obviously we'll get to the thing that you're probably most known for outside of MMA after that. But first,
Okay.
if there's any stories from that time, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of cool, like, I have little things that that happened while I was serving in the president's unit. But one of the things that I'll never forget, I just can't forget it, because my dog that I worked a couple different dogs, but I had trained one, and it was my time. Like, I was like in line to get the new dog, right? And so I got the new dog, and this dog, Axo, I trained from like when he came from the schoolhouse as a baby, and like, just I was so proud because he was an incredible explosive detection dog. Like, this dog I trusted with my life. He was my partner. I knew that if he responded, there likely was an explosive, like, no shit, because we would do deliberate training, you know what I mean, where our dogs would respond on things like C4 and all these different types of explosive materials and things like that. And this dog, we had done so many training scenarios and so much preparation that I trusted this dog, no doubt. And I knew this dog would never bullshit me. So we were we were working the gate, and this truck came through, and often we would have to search trucks and different things to make sure that they were clear. And my dog responds, and he sits in the vehicle, and I was like, oh shit. I started to count, like, 1,000, 2, 1,000. I'm thinking we're about to blow up, like, for sure. Like, everything, like, I'm gonna be gone. Like, it's just gonna, and we didn't. Obviously, I'm here, and I was like, okay. So then I'm starting to go through like my training and my checklist, and now I'm like kind of looking for different types of wires, and I'm 100% convinced that there is an explosive in this vehicle, like in this truck, like, no doubt. So I tell my other Marines at the gate, I'm like, listen, this guy, whoever's driving this truck, and he's over there in like quarantine, I'm like, he's not getting through. Like, I sound all the bells and whistles. Like, I'm like, we have to figure out what the hell is going on here. Like, let's go through it. So I get a hold of his connection on the other side, and they're telling me, well, we have no idea. This guy is bringing in radios that go, in our birds and things like that. And so after like deliberate hours and hours and hours, we have this guy, and finally I get a phone call, and they're saying, hey, does your dog respond on chlorides, like sodium chlorides that are usually used in some explosive components? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay, so they actually use chlorates to clean some of these electronic devices from the warehouse that they came from. It's like, okay, that's what. So he was picking up on the residual, the scent. Dogs have such intense intuitions and smells and things like that. So he was picking up on the residual of the odor that was used. And he was right, but thank God there wasn't an explosive there. And that guy didn't end up going to a military prison and disappear forever. So.
Oh my goodness. At least Axo's good at his job, though. I mean, better safe than sorry, for sure.
Exactly. And it was cool too because Axo I got to adopt when he was done with his service. Like he did much longer than I did. And he started to get hip dysplasia. And I told one of my younger Marines, like, hey, if whenever he's ready for retirement, let me know because I'd love to adopt him. So I adopted him when my daughter was only like 4 months old. And I had 2 other dogs at the time. So I'm like 3 dogs and a baby, crazy, but like, let's do it. And it was so wonderful to give him like the civilian life and to like watch him transition. It was wild to watch him transition like a Marine dog. Is so similar to how many of us like go through phases in our transition from like military life to civilian life. And it was so rewarding and such a blessing. He's long past now, but just a badass dog, like awesome experience.
Yeah, man. Most of I do remember seeing most of your early Instagram pictures were of your American Bulldog, French Bulldog, and Axo.
Yeah.
And then just having fun and playing. So that was really, really cool. And I know one of them, I know Axo passed away and then one of the others passed away. Is any of those 3 still?
So my American Bulldog, Bo, he passed away. But my Frenchie, Lola, and she's a little feisty little alpha beast, but I actually, she's still around. She's like 10 now. And, but I got a dog from Homefront Canine, a service dog organization, and I named him Axe, like that you throw. And he's amazing. He just turned 3. Let me see, he's over here. Z, come say hi. Come. Up, come, up. This is Axe.
So cute.
He is like such a blessing. I love this dog. This dog is like a he really should be out like killing bad guys because he's like a savage, but he also like loves babies and he's so sweet. Like he's a family dog, but he's like such a, let me see, he's such a like protector and like warrior dog, and I love him. He's like such a blessing in my life. So Gray Man Tactical sponsored him for me through Homefront Canine, and I'm eternally thankful for them both.
Oh man, yeah, and thank you for introducing me to Axe too.
Yeah, for sure.
so cute. And
he's been to a lot of my fights.
Oh really?
Yeah, he's been. This is the first one he won't be able to come to, unfortunately. But
yeah,
your dog.
Yeah, so my dog's in the other room right now, chewing on a like a peanut butter filled bone or something like that, and she's a little princess. I nothing. I'm sure nothing like Axe. She just is just such a. I would not trust her if someone broke into my house. She would just lick them to death and love them. And she's perfect for me, though.
That's
I love
wonderful. I love that. I love the connection is so important. Like, obviously, each dog has its own capabilities and stuff like that. But what I find so wonderful and like so purposeful is the connection between human and dogs. Like, I just think it's such a lifesaver. I know a lot of veterans and a lot of people who are like, if it wasn't for my dog, like, I don't know if I'd be around. Do you know what I mean? And like, that's so special for me. I think I just love it. I love the connection that we can share with our animals. So,
yeah. So switching courses to something I teased earlier about probably what you're most known for outside of MMA, and probably honestly what you're most known for, period, is asking and taking Justin Timberlake to the Marine Corps ball. That when I searched Kelsey De Santis, I found all of this stuff first, before all of your MMA stuff. And it was really cool to see that. I guess my question is, because I'm sure you had a great time, and that was awesome and all of that. But is there anything that you were able to learn about him that most people don't know?
That's a great question. You know, I think maybe just by learning, not that he told me, so much, but learning that he's incredibly patient was really kind of surprising to me because uh especially after that whole experience, I realized I'm like, dude, I don't ever want to be like famous in your shoes, bro. Like, because people and there was women crying, behind us, and
Oh my gosh.
people coming out of nowhere with the phone and the selfie, and that gives me high anxiety. Like, I don't like when people I like my space, you know what I mean? Like, I like my situational awareness and stuff. Like, I like to not be surprised. And he's just like, this is my job, and he's lived that life for quite some time. And but to see him handle it with grace was cool, you know what I mean? And I was like, wow, he could be annoyed or a dick about it, you know what I mean? But he wasn't. He was just like, yeah, I'll take a picture with you, cool as a cucumber. I told him he needs to start jujitsu. I don't know if he took my advice, but
Yeah, yeah. I know there's a lot of celebrities that are starting to do that now. So
yeah, there are.
So along those lines, I know every or most every Marine Corps birthday you make a post, and for a lot of them, you've tagged Justin Timberlake and basically asked to re-engage with him. Has there been any sort of talk with him after the event?
No, I mean, he invited me to the Guys' Choice Awards, which was really cool afterward, and he got an award for going to the ball, which was awesome. But I always tag him, and because I love the engagement that I got some numbers from my public relations officer that was attached to me, which this is the reason why I got into communications, which is so fascinating to me because this whole thing unfolded, and I was just interested in how this all kind of happens. And they told me that it was this was the biggest engagement between the civilian population and those who serve. And I just thought that was so fascinating. And that's translated so much through since I've gotten out of the Marine Corps and understanding and try to navigate my own transition and getting connected with other veterans and trying to help and be a part of both my own healing and other veterans healings, because it's around or over 22 veterans a day that commit suicide. And so with that being such a commonality in our community, a lot of us look for resources or try to find ways to connect. And so um, it's just interesting how that happened right before I was about to get out of the Marine Corps, and then it translated through my experience on the outside in so many different ways. I've worked with so many great organizations like We Defy Foundation, and I'm working with this group now that does ketamine treatments and stuff like that. And it's just fascinating to me getting connected. I love connections between those who have served and our community, boots on the ground, people in our community. That to me is true American, true patriotism. And it's not defined by color or political affiliation whatsoever. We're talking because, people of service, we're talking all different kinds of backgrounds and ethnicities and state of mind and beliefs and everything. So it's just so cool to me to get connected with our local communities. And I think that was a big part of what inspired the whole thing. But I really hope maybe one day he'll come to one of my fights. So
yeah. I know Saudi Arabia, the whatever it's called. I know that their entertainment sort of division or whatever that's called, they like to bring in a lot of celebrities for their fights and stuff. So maybe maybe there's secretly sort of an invite out for him for that, but we'll just have to wait and see. But so switching gears, I know you mentioned that you sort of got a passion for MMA through your martial arts teaching in the Marine Corps. And then you had your amateur MMA career, and your last fight in 2013, before that 10-year gap, was part of a tournament with a lot of really people who turned out to be really big names in the sport, like Ashley Evans Smith, Peggy Morgan, Fallon Fox. You were originally, I think, supposed to fight her in the tournament, it looked like.
Yeah.
And then you ended up fighting Alana Jones, who is known for facing Holly Holm in LFA. I don't know, that was just sort of really interesting to see. That was not really something that I had known about before, but that tournament was kind of loaded with a lot of big names, and it was cool that you were able to make your pro debut in that tournament.
It was super cool. And CFA told me that a big reason why they did it was I had been training down at ATT Kendall at the time. And they were kind of inspired, like, hey, let's do a women's tournament. I was like, heck yeah, I'm all about it. And it was super cool to be a part of that group. I love that that was their first women's tournament. And we fought at the University of Miami, which is crazy because then I went on to get my master's degree there later on. But I won that fight. I won that fight hands down. Amanda Nunez was there, and I trained with her for a while too. She was there. She even told me, she was like, "You won that fight." I was like, "I know, I won that fight." I learned a lot about, like, I should have pulled the trigger, but it's kind of hard when you feel like you're chasing somebody, you know what I mean? And obviously that's a strategy. But for me, I'm not like, I do so much better. And I came to realize that I do so much better with when I fight somebody who's there to fight, and that goes for jiu-jitsu too. It's happened to me in high level. It happened to me at the World's Masters tournament in Vegas last year, right before I fought Amanda Bell, who I really like. I lost to last year, but I almost finished her. And I did that fight without the corner that trained me for that fight. So, and my girlfriend Francesca went. She's like the slap queen. I know I'm like segueing into a bunch of different stuff, but I experienced that 2 weeks before that fight at the World Masters. A girl, she just kept running out of bounds. I mean, we're talking 7-8 times. And I was like, this is ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's like, come on.
You'd think they called some type of like stalling or something, right?
He said, I lost by a negative point for pushing her out of bounds, apparently. And I'm like, bro, like, we are not watching the same tournament. You know what I mean? So, but you learn how competitors game the game sometimes, unfortunately, through experience. But that's why I'm so excited about this fight, because I know that's not Claressa. Claressa don't fight like that. You know what I mean? She's there to throw. She's there to throw down and to fight. And I have a huge respect for her and a bunch of other women that come to fight. We come to compete. We come to put on a good show. We give it 100%. It's not looking to game the game or win by a point system or, like any bullshit like that. So,
yeah. So your answer put my mind in a few different directions. But I'm going to try to stay on the one that I was going to follow up with was, you were still active in training and martial arts and all of that throughout the course of your 10 years between fights. You competed in jiu-jitsu tournaments. You helped Amanda Nunez with a lot of her title defenses and things like that. And all of that was at ATT. But as your hoodie suggests, you're now at MMA Masters.
Yes.
So talk about some of the decision making behind making that transition.
Yeah, so first of all, I love MMA Masters. I love Master Caesar and Master Daniel. They're an incredible partnership. Like, to see two people, whether it's in business or martial arts or life, to see two people last as long as they have, and they've created champions and all different stuff, is just incredible and inspiring to me, because I've seen a lot of people that are best friends that lose their friendships over like business and things like that. And so for me, that was one of the first things I recognized and noticed. And then when I started training there, I was like, wow, I really love this environment. I like the other fighters here. It's very positive. They're very much so like father figures to me. And I'm just so happy to be a part of this team. This is my last MMA team. I remember Caesar was talking about a couple of months ago, and he was talking about, like loyalty with the team and stuff like that. And I'm like, I feel you. I'm here, but this is my last team. Like, this is where I go all out. And I'm happy to. And it's a little bit of a drive for me, and I do other training up where I'm at, but this is my MMA team that I represent, and it's an honor and a privilege too. I love that their legacy and the environment that they create day in, day out at training. It's just, it feels great to be a part of the team and to be training under them.
One athlete that comes to mind who made the move from ATT to MMA Masters, of course, is Colby Covington. And what I have heard from people at that gym is, and this kind of makes sense, that he's nothing like the character he puts on, like in the media. Like, he's actually, for lack of a better word, a decent human being, but in the gym. And I'm just curious about your thoughts about that, and sort of the side that you see of him in the gym versus what we as fans see when the cameras are on.
That's a great question, Nate. So first of all, the first experience I've had with him was at ATT Coconut Creek, and he wasn't very liked there either. And when I first came here, I befriended George Masvidal. We were managed by Tina Vidal, was my first MMA manager. And then I watched kind of like them be friends, and then the falling out. And I try to keep my distance. I have a family and stuff that I like worry about, so I try not to get wrapped up in the drama. But I just witnessed that. And then I witnessed, him at MMA Masters, and like, I like the coaches and him seem to get along. I mean, I'd make eye contact here and there with him when I'd see him, but I've never really spoke to the dude, to be honest with you. And I'll tell you why. I don't really have an interest in speaking to someone personally that throws up like women in the way that he does on his social media. That's just a personal thing for me. Like, I don't have anything against the guy. Like, it's just not my flavor, not my style. But I've from MMA Masters, it was cool to watch him actually, I think, be accepted more there. And he was a black sheep at ATT Coconut Creek. And I don't like that. To be honest with you, I don't like it. I mean, we're all human. You know what I mean? So like, when somebody gets like outcasted, or like, I don't like that when people throw people to the side. Like, to me, that's kind of like, even if they're like, their values aren't aligned with things that say that I'm in alignment with, but I just don't like it when people get, kind of black sheep. But it was cool because to see him accepted at MMA Masters was even more reason why I was like, okay, like, I kind of feel like a black sheep in a way. Yeah. Take me in, you know what I mean? And they did, which is cool, because I truly believe in the system and in Master Daniel and Caesar. I think they're great people and they create like a great environment, like I said.
Yeah, that's great. And I agree with your stance on, you know, not appreciating the way he has women all over his page. I know I don't like that either, but and there are some times with him where it feels like he's going too far with the character that he's playing or supposedly playing. But I don't know. I've heard, like I said, from some people that he is not like that in the gym, which is, I just found really interesting. But moving on, you also mentioned your relationship with, her name's the Slap Queen, right? I do not follow Power Slap.
No, so I call her the Slap Queen, but her name's Francesca, and she's so before I knew anything about the slap stuff, I met her at American Combat Gym. So I was at ATT Coconut Creek, and then I started, and I still do train at Carlson Gracie, Boca Raton, and I teach the kickboxing there too. So that's my jiu-jitsu school, which is my home jiu-jitsu school, and that's where I teach. And then, my MMA school, I was going to American Combat Gym for a while, and that's when I met Francesca, and we hit it off right away. Like, I love her. She's a freaking beast. Like, she is a no shit. Like, I mean, judo black belt, the real deal. Like, she's great in her arena, and then also she's a great wrestler too. So she teaches me a lot, and she was like one of the first people. Like, I worked with Kayla Harrison at ATT Coconut Creek, but she didn't. I mean, she was like, I helped her with her sparring for the first PFL million that she won, but she didn't. And she would teach like my daughter that was there, little throws and stuff like that. But she was too busy, which rightfully so, doing what she needed to do. But like, Francesca was the first like judo friend of mine to actually teach me. And I love and adore it. It's my last, like, I feel like I've explored all the different, and I'm still learning and still a student. I always will be, of all the different martial arts. But judo, I feel like, was like one of the last pieces that I've been pulling together and just admired and started to love. And so yeah, that's how we met. And then she's the reason she started training at MMA Masters. And I was like, okay, that's where I want to be, training with her. And then that's how I kind of like made my way down there. And she does the slap stuff, and that's on a whole different level. Yeah, I definitely am not letting anybody slap me in the face without getting to like fight them.
That's what I was about. That was going to be my next question, was if she's done any convincing or tried to get you into doing power slap. But it sounds like that's not the case.
No. And I think from what she's told me, I'm pretty sure she's been working to like make her way into MMA, and I think she'd be great. We've been working together like on her striking and stuff like that. And so we share information, you know what I mean? We like help each other, which has been really cool. And she's a sweetheart. I admire her. She's strong, very kind. And she's got like 2 of those slap knockouts, and she's about to go on the 9th, I think it is. And I can see her doing it again. She's got some crazy strength and focus, and very. Her father was her and her brother's judo coach, and I mean, they're just incredible. They're killers, and I think she almost made it to like the Olympic trials and stuff like that, like back in her time. Yeah, so she's an inspiration to me. I love her. She's a good friend of mine.
Yeah, and gosh, the mentality to do something like that is just insane. So shout out to her. I don't understand how anybody could ever do it, but
Yeah.
Awesome for her.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to do just a few quick rapid fire questions before we wrap up, because I am way over time, over the time that I told you we were going to be.
It's okay.
And I
but
apologize for that, but
no worries. And if my phone dies, I'm sorry in advance, but it's red line. So I'll try to.
Okay.
But
we'll try to get through these really quick then. One, what is your favorite striking technique?
Oh man, like no weapons.
No weapons. Yeah. In martial arts.
I mean, I love elbows. Like if you're doing anything with elbows, I'm just like, I adore it.
PFL, get it together.
That's what I'm saying.
And then on the other end, what is your favorite submission?
So I love the bow and arrow choke, and that's more so like there's a version of no gi of it, but it's obviously like a traditional in the gi. But yeah, I would say that's top. I have so many, but I just it's very elegant to me.
Yeah. Interesting. I've not heard that one before. So that's, well, I've heard of it, but I've not heard anybody say that with people that I've spoken with. But when you, well, either when you make weight or when you are done with the fight and everything, what are you going to eat? Like, what's your go-to meal if you just have no sort of, or I guess a better question is, what would your last meal be if you knew that it was going to be your last meal?
Okay. Probably like a really good pizza joint spot. You know, like the coal fire or something, rather, like the best pizza place in town for sure. I'm a foodie. I love food. And this fight is at 155. Thank God. I've always wanted to fight at 155. And like that's so much more of a natural weight for me. Like I thank goodness I trained with George Lockhart early on. He was one of the Marines that got me over to the martial arts center, really. And he does like the Tyson. He does Tyson's weight cuts and stuff like that. And he's working with Joe Parker. He's going to be he's going to be a part of my corner for this fight. Full circle. And he was one of my first MMA coaches, and he taught me everything. I was the first female that he ever cut in terms of nutrition. And he's got like a whole certification program. I'm certified under him and everything. And so nutrition is big, obviously, but I love good food, and especially like good meats, quality meats are like my favorite. I tried to go vegetarian for a little bit, and that just didn't work out for me.
I couldn't do that either. I've spoken with a couple people that have competed in Saudi Arabia, but I've never asked this. Have you done any research into like what Saudi cuisine is and what you might be interested in eating when you get over there?
Not yet, but I'm so excited that George is going to be there because he's doing Joe Parker's like nutrition stuff. So I'm just going to like plan on like him walking me through like, hey, George, you need to help me like navigate this whole food thing. He's going to be there a little bit before me, but I am going to be doing some research because me and my girlfriend, Leslie, she's cornered me for every fight that I've won. And she's a Marine Corps veteran as well. And yeah, you've spoken to Leslie, you know, so she's going to be there with me. And I just told her today, I was like, look, we're not like these other people. Like we're like legit travelers, you know, and explorers. So we're going to do something like every morning. We're going to have planned to like go see something. And we got our whole, like, I'm not trying to be uncovered and like, you know, spotted out by anybody. Like we're blending in.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited for this. I think it's going to be a super fun journey. And I'm looking forward to trying whatever tea or whatever cuisine that they have, and like really taken in the culture. I think this is huge for their country. So
yeah, I'm really excited for that. Favorite book?
Oh man, I have so many books that I like love. I like a lot of them happen to be like written. I love all of Jack Carr's series. Um, and Sean Parnell has a great book that I've been into lately, and he signed it for me years ago. I just hadn't read it until I started reading it just recently because he was on one of his podcasts that I was listening to. Um, so there's a lot, but a lot of them tend to be like the art of war type, and like anything that has to do with like those who have served and their experiences, whether it was overseas or their experiences transitioning back, I'm just like fascinated with.
Similarly, favorite movie?
Oh man. This is such a hard one for okay. So you probably have never heard of it. It's like it's called Little Women.
Oh, I've heard of it, definitely.
Have you? It's like
Oh
very
yeah,
old
yeah.
school. Okay. So that's one of my that's pretty I'm gonna call that my favorite movie. I mean, I love like the old school Karate Kids and like anything like old school Ninja Turtles and stuff. I'm very much like my favorite movie has have to do with like the VHS as a kid, you know, that I
yeah.
watched.
Okay, last one before we wrap up.
Okay.
Looking back at 15-year-old Kelsey, given the background that you came up in, and looking at where you are now, what would you say to that teenage girl that was just getting started in her Muay Thai journey, and just getting started in her interest in joining the Marine Corps and all of that?
You have such great questions, Nate. This is a great question. And I saw a young girl the other day that kind of reminded me of myself. And it just came out naturally. She was translating for one of her parents. And I told her, "You're going to be so successful. Like, no matter what you do, you're going to be so successful. And like, don't let anybody try to define you or put you in a box. Like, do what makes you happy, and it doesn't have a time frame." That's the other thing. A lot of times we put time frames on ourselves, or like, oh, this has to be done, or this, I need to get this done, or I have to do this. And it's really like time time kind of means like it's relevant, but it's not when it comes to your happiness. And like it's so much life is so much about like purpose and happiness. So keep doing what is healthy, like find that healthy addiction, find all the healthy addictions, and run toward what makes you find purpose and makes you happy.
That's awesome. That's a great way to end it. Before I let you go, how can people follow you on social media? And I want to give you the floor for any shout outs or anything like that.
Okay, cool. So I'm primarily on Instagram. I'm trying to work out expanding my social media efforts, but that's a process. So it's at Kelsey De Santis. And I'm so thankful for the sponsors that I currently have and that have helped me throughout the way. Obviously, MMA Masters is like my huge training sponsor, my team. Sucker Punch Entertainment, Chris, Brian, those are my guys. I'm so thankful for them. Naked Warrior Recovery, super great company that has been helping my supplementation and helping me through fight camps along the way. Restore is like my recovery go-to in Delray, and they help me with like hyperbaric treatment, different types of like vitamins and shots and things like that. War Party Movement, which I just started to represent, and they're an incredible organization that are representing women who have been abused or in such unideal situations, and helping empower them and help them move forward. We Defy Foundation, which, remember, we were talking about how I love the boots on the ground in your community that gets those who haven't served, patriots, connected with those who have served, and that's like true community. That's We Defy Foundation. They get veterans into jiu-jitsu, into their community, and that's like, in my opinion, great integration for heart and soul for everybody. I know I'm leaving some out. Off Leash Canine just sponsored me for this fight. Nick White runs that, and I'm so thankful for them. There's probably a couple more, but I put them on my social media. So if you follow me, we'll make sure I check them out. Thank you.
All right. That's awesome. This has been Kelsey De Santis. You can catch her competing on the PFL versus Bellator prelims against Claressa Shields later this month. Kelsey, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck in your fight.
Nate, thank you. Appreciate you.